Today I'm going to talk about the Vaporfly version 1 after just 150 miles. .28 miles, 7 minutes, 20 seconds per mile today. Having an absolutely fantastic time out there running. Perfect running conditions, the kinds of things that you just dream about for your long run. 53 degrees for the start, 63 degrees by the time I was finished. I had nice tree cover for most of the route, zero wind, and the trail pretty much to myself. And it was just absolutely fantastic out there running in the Vaporfly 4%. And it was a perfect way, it turns out, to send off this shoe. I'm going to be retiring this shoe after just 150 miles. Before I get into why, I'm going to talk a little bit about disclosures. This is a pair of shoes that I did buy by myself, paid for it with my own money. Nike's not paying me to make this video or to have worn this shoe, and no one's going to get a chance to preview any of this footage before it goes up on YouTube. And with that out of the way, let's talk about the Vaporfly 4% after just 150 miles. I know a lot of you guys that are the miles per dollar or miles per pound warriors out there are going to freak out and say that 150 miles is way too short to be paying that amount for this shoe. And this is a pair of shoes that I had to buy on the aftermarket. I think it's so easy for us to forget how hard it was to get Vaporfly just 1 year ago, last October. And I bought these for 300 bucks on StockX. So they were an older shoe, although not used, new but unworn. And I've only gotten 150 miles in it, but I definitely got a lot of bang for buck in my mind out of it. I ran the Indianapolis Marathon in it, had an absolutely fantastic time. I did a lot of long training runs in this shoe. I've even taken it trail running. I mean, today I guess was technically a trail run, although it's very smooth, compacted, dirt and gravel that was in there. Really great for running a fast pace. The level out there, it's almost completely flat the entire time because it was formerly a rail line that has now been converted into a recreational trail. So that's why I got a little bit more yellowing than you might expect. I have taken this on quite a bit of trails. I took this with me out to San Diego and just had some absolute fun times running in this shoe. There is a significant amount of wear on the Zoomx phone. It's pretty chewed up, which is pretty typical with the version 1 and the version 2 Vaporfly. On the right-hand side, it's a lot worse than it is on the left-hand side. My right-hand side is usually where I get the most wear right here. And normally, I wouldn't have thought that this would be like the last run or the last miles I'd put on this shoe. Otherwise, I would have gotten it to over 150. Technically, I'm at 149 and change miles on this shoe. I would have just gotten it to 150 so for the sake of the video, but I think I'm going to retire this shoe, and that's because of what's going on actually in the left foot. Now, one of the things that I noticed as I put on the shoe last time was that I'm actually getting some separation from the upper from the Zoomx foam. It's finally happening to me too, guys. It took a while for this to happen, and it doesn't look so bad when I'm just holding the shoe now, and I am kind of pulling it to show it to you guys. But when my foot was in it, it looked much more substantial. It was to the point where I was concerned that the upper might separate from the midsole during my run. Fortunately, that didn't happen, and the shoe performed like a dream. Towards the end of my run, around mile 17 or so, I was thinking, well, maybe there's something going on in the foam where it's just not holding up. It's just not feeling as fresh in those later miles as Vaporfly should, so maybe it is time to retire it, or soon. I was thinking I was probably going to be able to get it to 200 miles, but then I noticed this. Well, I didn't notice this right away. And what this is, there's a bubble in the rubber here, and it's really hard to film. I'm not sure how to show it. And at first I thought maybe it was an air bubble had got in between the rubber outsole and the Zoomx foam. But what I think is, I think the rubber has detached from the Zoomx foam here, while the outer perimeter of it still is intact and still adhering. This part right underneath the ball of my foot where the most of the traction is, hasn't. And the way that I noticed it during my run is for like the last 3 or 4 miles, I noticed a squeaking or chirping sound. Now on that particular trail, there are some crazy territorial birds, really small blackbirds with some red highlights that are very territorial and will chase you if you get nearby, especially when they have their young. But it was going on over a course of miles, and I was like, those birds, they stay really close to the nest when they're chasing people, so it can't be them. And it turns, I think what it was is, I think it was this air pocket in there as I was running was making a chirping sound. I thought maybe it was this upper and midsole separation that was causing something. Maybe some water had gotten in there, even though I hadn't gotten in any water. Or something was happening with friction wise that was causing that chirping sound. I think it's this. I think that there was air getting in and out somewhere that was kind of whistling at me. So that was a real surprise, and I think that's going to be the reason why I'm going to retire these at this point. The rubber on the outsole, it's actually holding up really well otherwise. So if we look at the right hand side, for example, the rubber's fine. Still plenty of tread left in it. The Zoomx foam is fine, especially the rubber that's inlaid into the Zoomx foam is doing great. I know I've seen pictures of some people that these particular rubber patches, because the Zoomx foam gets cut away, might pop out. I could see that that would probably happen to me by the time I maybe got to 200 miles, maybe, but it hasn't happened to me yet. So I do think that there's more life left in these at 150 miles. I think that most people can probably get their Vaporfly version 1 to 200 miles, but mine are not going to make it that far. I could still probably run in them, and I was planning on running in them for my Tuesday tempo run, but because of this thing and this chirping that's going on and this weird bubble I have in the outsole, and I also have 2 other pair of Vaporfly in my closet, I think I'm gonna say goodbye to these guys. These guys have treated me so well. I've had so many good runs in it, a lot of good memories. And it was just a great shoe that I had a great time running in. Was it worth it? I don't know. That's up to you. That value calculation is always up to you guys. I do think that there is a limit onto how much a person should pay for their race shoes. But on the other hand, it's kind of like asking how many miles per gallon are you getting out of race fuel, which my understanding is usually about 2 or 1 mile per gallon, depending on, you know, the engines and the kinds of racing you're doing and the kinds of fuels. But that's an aside. That's not really the kind of calculus you do or arithmetic that you do when you're looking at race fuel, I guess, unless you're doing like a Formula One race and you're trying to calculate pit stops, that kind of thing. But when you're talking about the value of that fuel, you're not talking about miles per dollar of a gallon of gas. Similarly, I don't really think about the miles per dollar when I'm talking about racing shoes, shoes that I feel like enable me to get to that finish line, get to that 20-mile mark. Just this time a year ago, hitting a 20-mile run seemed like unfathomable to me during a training block. It was kind of like the peak of training, and now I'm able to do it still several weeks from my peak in this training block, and it just makes me feel fantastic. Maybe it's a placebo effect, but if it is, it's a really cheap placebo effect if you think about it. So that's my thoughts on the Vaporfly version 1 and its longevity. Can I get more out of it? Maybe. This is where I'm going to leave mine. I'm going to retire them at 100 and I guess technically 149 miles. Let me know what you think about your Vaporfly or these Vaporfly. I'm sure you guys have lots to say in the comments. I'd love to hear what you guys think and talk to you guys more down there. Before I go, I want to talk about the charity runner for this week. It's Emily McCool, who's running the New York City Marathon for the Brain Injury Association of New York State. I've donated $70 to her fundraising efforts, and I'll post a link in the description in case you'd like to learn more. That's all I have for today, everybody. Thanks so much for making it all the way to the end of the video, and I'll see you tomorrow.
Yo, what's going on?